And welcome to this training, how to fill out your DACA renewal forms. Today is April 11th of 2020, and the goal here is that there are many individuals who are having a hard time getting a hold of an individual who will be able to assist them with filling out their DACA renewal forms because of COVID-19. As a result of that, today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be teaching you how to do these forms on your own and how to submit the paperwork. There are 4 forms that you need to fill out. 821D, which is the application for DACA renewal. It's important that we understand that you have to fill out multiple forms. The 821D, if approved, allows you to live in the United States for 2 more years, and then you can apply for a work permit, which is the 765I. And with that form, what you're able to do is you're applying to be able to legally work in the United States. And then you have the 765WS or worksheet. And with the worksheet, what you do is you're asking and giving them a reason, asking for the work permit and giving them a reason why you need the work permit. And then the 1145G is the form that you fill out so that you submit the forms to the federal government, and then you will be able to get a text message, an email, and later on you can get 2 forms which are actual paper forms that say they have received your paperwork. All of these forms are available at www.uscis.gov, and I will show you in a minute how to get to those. If you are in the West Coast, specifically in California, you should be familiar with this address. This is where you're going to mail your package, but again, it's different depending on where you're watching this presentation. If you are doing it from California, USCIS, PO Box 20700, Phoenix, Arizona. And again, it's important that you mail it to the right address. What I'm recommending at this moment, and I want to clarify, I'm not an attorney. I do not pretend to be an attorney. I have been trained by attorneys in 2012 as to how to fill out first-time applicants for DACA, and I have been assisting the community for several years now on doing DACA renewals. And as a result of that, students within Santa Rosa Junior College, MECHA, who are sponsoring this video, they and myself have been able to save our community over $1.5 million in just fees for filling out the application. That does not exclude the $495 that individuals have to pay to immigration. But as a result of this volunteer work, we have been able to do that. We are just volunteers. The other thing that I want to let you know as a result of DACA is immigration has made it clear that because there is nobody working in their offices right now and their offices are closed, therefore they're not doing fingerprint checking, or they're not checking your background at this moment. So anybody who's applying for DACA renewal at the moment will be granted the renewal based on the results of the fingerprints from 2 years ago when you did your last renewal. And that brings me to another item that is of great importance. If you have been arrested since your last renewal for a crime that is deportable, and this includes, but is not limited to, DUIs, so driving under the influence, domestic violence, gang affiliation, possession of marijuana or other drugs. While it might be legal in California to possess marijuana, it is still a federal crime, and undocumented immigrants will be deported for this. So it's important that we understand that. Again, and crimes against children, those are for sure deportable offenses. If you have been arrested for one of these crimes, you should not apply for DACA renewal without checking with an attorney. The same thing is true if you have been arrested for one of these crimes. You shouldn't apply for unemployment as a result of COVID-19, because part of applying for unemployment is your documentation will be verified with the federal government, and as a result of that, they may determine that you are ineligible and that you, again, have committed a deportable crime or are being accused. And often that is enough. And so, for that reason, we invite you to please be careful before applying for DACA renewal. And again, I am not an attorney. This is just information that we have learned over the years. And as a result of that, we want to make sure that you do not put yourself at risk. Once the packet is done, you're going to mail it with a money order or check or cashier's check for $495, and that is directed to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. You're going to add in that packet 2 U.S. passport size pictures, a copy of both sides of the work permit, and a copy of the last approval letter for 821D. That is your DACA. And the reason you send that is because you're already sending a copy of the permit, and that takes care of the 765I, but you still have to show proof that you have been approved for DACA the last time. Therefore, a copy of the 821D letter, and this is not the best copy, but this is a sample of what it should look like. And so we invite you to, again, be careful on the paperwork that you have to send to immigration, because, again, making mistakes with immigration can become a real issue. Before we get to the actual forms, I want to let you know of something called the Special Immigrant Juvenile Status. This is applicable to any of the states within the United States. So if you are watching this maybe in Colorado or in New Mexico, please be careful, but make sure that if you know an undocumented individual under the age of 21, but preferably under the age of 18, who is single, and there is proof that he or she was abandoned, abused, or neglected by one of their parents. And often what I find is that maybe mom and dad were having issues, and at some point, dad decided to go back to their home country, and now mom is here with the children. If that is the situation, then that child can in fact qualify to obtain a special immigrant juvenile status, because technically the child has been abandoned by the father. Then there are some individuals who are also under the age of 18 who were on probation or were part of the criminal justice system as a juvenile, who might be able to qualify for this. Again, if you are aware of any of those cases, you can communicate with me. My email address will be provided at the end, and then you can refer individuals, and then we can refer them to the right immigration attorney. Not all immigration attorneys can provide this type of training. And there you have it. My name is Rafael Vasquez, and again, I am the advisor for Mecha de Santa Rosa Junior College, and my email address is rvasquez@santarosa.edu. Due to the high volume of emails that we are receiving at the moment due to COVID-19, please be patient with me, but if you don't hear back from me within a few days, please send me a follow-up email. I will not be upset about it. I will be grateful in case, for whatever reason, I wasn't able to get to your original message. And with that, let's go to the actual forms. And so the forms are the 765I. So what we want to do here is we want to make sure that you are aware that there is the 765I and the 821D. All of it is available at, again, USCIS. And what you do when you get here, the first thing that I want to let you know before we get to the actual forms is to actually go to forms if for whatever reason you have relocated since your last renewal. Remember, immigration requires you to let them know within 10 days of relocating. Let's say you had to move from home to another location, or your family relocated, you have 10 days to let immigration know your new address. The form is right here. So you click on forms and you go to this, which is the AR11. You click on it, and then you say that you want to fill it out online. So you click online, and then the computer will guide you to make sure that is done. I will not go through it, but at the end, it doesn't take more than 5 minutes. At the end, you can print or download and save into your computer the record that says that you changed your address and you told Homeland Security that you changed your address. That way, if at some point you're accused of not having told them, you will have a receipt that proves that. If you want to get to the actual 4 forms, you go here where it says search or cite, and you're going to type DACA, and then you're going to press enter, and that will take you to this one. There's multiple websites here, but you want to go to the first one. And from there, you want to keep going down until it says renew your DACA. And that will bring you to another side. And this one, as you can tell, it only gives you access to 3 forms, and we want the 4 forms. Therefore, you click on the first one, which will take us to the first application. A21D, there you have the 765, the 765 worksheet, and the G1145. And so it's important that you pay attention to those pieces. And that brings us then to the actual forms. So for the sake of this presentation, I have already downloaded the forms, and I'm going to have them here for you. That way we don't waste as much time. Once you break them down, I want to clarify that the first thing that you should do is make sure you verify when do they expire, because you don't want to use a form that already expired. Otherwise, immigration will just return it to you. So this one expires on April 30th of 2021, but the 765 expires on May 31st of 2020, and the same is for the worksheet. The G1145 really doesn't have an expiration date, so that's good. But the other two, again, depending when you're going to apply for renewal, make sure that you're using the most appropriate one. So with that, let's get started with the A21D. One of the most important questions before we even get to this piece is this one. The question is whether or not you have been or are in removal proceedings from the United States. That means that perhaps you are now, maybe were arrested for one of those crimes where you can get deported. And as a result of that, you are now on deportation proceedings. And if you say yes to this question, then you need to stop and you need to contact an immigration attorney. You cannot submit the application. An immigration attorney needs to assist you. The same thing again, if you have been arrested for one of those other crimes I mentioned, such as child abuse and domestic violence, drinking and driving, possession of marijuana or other drugs, or being a part of a gang that the police has a record. And the other one that you have to be very careful as well is if you have a medical marijuana card, you need to talk to an attorney. In many cases, attorneys will suggest that you do not try to renew your DACA, because if your fingerprint has been collected, it may have been made available to immigration somehow, or to the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, and as a result of that, immigration may be able to find out. When you have a medical marijuana card, you're basically admitting to the federal government that you must use what they have determined to be a class 1 illegal drug, because your medical needs cannot be taken care of with regular drugs, right? Medications, as we call them. And for that reason, you need to consult with an attorney, an immigration attorney. Okay, if you don't have any of those cases and the answer to this is no, I'm not in deportation proceedings, then you go to a renewal request. And here you're gonna put the day that your paperwork, that your present work permit expires. And that may be perhaps October 20 of 2020. The other thing that we need to make sure here is at this moment, I'm recommending that people renew about 4 months ahead of time so that your card doesn't expire. But what it is also important for people to understand is that there are a lot of DACA recipients who are really concerned at the moment because they are thinking that maybe the Supreme Court of the United States may end up deciding the case in June to end DACA. And for that reason, some individuals are renewing their DACA permit halfway through May. So we invite you to keep that in mind. But again, for the moment, I'm recommending 4 months before it expires. And here, I always recommend to be students and other individuals to use capital letters for the whole form. So here is going to be Vasquez, Rafael. If you happen to have two last names in your paperwork, make sure to include them. If you have a middle name, do the same. And then your mailing address is whatever you have in your records. Some of you may have a P.O. box as your mailing address, and then there's another space where you put your actual home address. And some of you, your mailing address and your home address will be exactly the same. And so this is how you do it. And then you move to page 2. In page 2, in your work permit card, there is something that says USCIS, and then there is a number that is going to start with either the 204, the 207, the 214. Regardless of what number it is, you copy the number that is appropriate to you. In my situation, we're just going to say, for the sake of conversation, that is a 204. And then your social security number goes here, and your birthday. And so let's say, for the sake of this, that my birthday is that one. Your gender. And this is important. Where were you born? Was it a town? Was it a village? Was it maybe a city? And so for the sake of conversation, we are going to say here that it was in Oaxaca, the city of Oaxaca, and the country of birth was Mexico, and the country of residence is the United States, and the country of citizenship is Mexico. And then, are you married, widow, single, or divorced? And then usually you don't do anything here. And we go back up to the top. And are you Latino, Latina, or not Latino? Are you Asian American, African American, so on and so forth? And then what is your height? And you're going to put how much you believe that you weigh. And then you're gonna put what color are your eyes, and you're gonna put what color is your hair. And then the next one tells you or asks you to confirm that you have been living in the United States since before June 15, 2007. And remember, to qualify for DACA, the answer needed to be yes, because you had to prove that. And again, like I said, the mailing address may be different, but the actual address where you live must be listed here. So for some individuals who live in rural communities, for example, it's important that you know that it's okay to put your mailing address as a P.O. box, but again, your actual home address needs to be placed here. And then, since when have you been living at that address? And again, once you move to another location, you need within 10 days to let immigration know. The other piece that is important here, and this place where it says travel information, it's only important if you actually left at some point with the program called advanced parole. If you left with that program in 2016, maybe, then you needed to fill this out. When did you leave? When you came back, and the reason. Most individuals who left was for humanitarian reasons, but if you did not leave the country, then you do not have to fill that out. You would just answer this question, which is, have you left the United States without advance parole? And the answer should be no. If the answer is going to be yes, you immediately have to contact an immigration attorney, and you shouldn't turn in this paperwork. And again, for renewals, we do not have to list all the address, just where you live now. And then we move to the next page. Most people don't fill this part out. This is the education information. I always fill it out because some individuals, when they originally filled out their DACA application, they did not have their high school diploma or a GED. And the commitment was that you were supposed to continue to go to high school until you graduated or gotten your GED or equivalent. So here it should say high school graduate. I say this because some individuals who in 2012 did not have a high school diploma or GED, they started going to get classes for GED and then did not finish the program. And the same thing for high school students who drop out and never got the high school diploma. And now in 2018-19, I still have cases where immigration denies them the work permit because they still haven't completed their GED. And they are told that they had been given multiple years to complete that task, and they haven't. And here you put the high school where you graduated, this city, the state, and then when did you graduate from high school? Let's say that. And then this question is important and must be answered, and that is, were you a member of the U.S. Armed Forces or the Coast Guard? For most individuals, the answer will be no. And all of these questions on the right side are very, very important. They all have to be answered. And again, if you're going to answer yes to any of them, you need to stop the process and you need to contact a reliable immigration attorney. If you live in California, in the county of Mendocino, Sonoma, Napa, Marin, or San Francisco, you can reach out to me via email, and I'll gladly provide you with the names and contact information for reliable attorneys. I do not get any compensation for referring them, but I trust them because I have worked with them for many years. And so the answers here is, have you been arrested or charged or convicted of a felony? Again, if the answer is no, then continue on, and there will be some questions including whether or not you have engaged in gang activity, whether you have killed somebody, so on and so forth. So the answer to all of them should be no. If any of them, the answer is yes, then you need to immediately contact an immigration attorney and stop this process. And that takes us to page 5, which is the last page. There are 7 pages, but you're only going to have to do 5 pages. Here, you're acknowledging that you understand reading and writing of English, and then you go down. Here is where you're going to sign. Here is the date. And again, put the date when you're going to mail it. So if you know you're going to mail your application in the middle of May, say May 15, right? Not April, but May 15, and then you can sign it now so that you don't forget to sign it then. And again, you put your phone number. And again, you don't have to put a bunch of phone numbers. A mobile number would work. And then you put your email address. And although immigration tends to communicate with you mainly via letter, it's important that you provide that information. And that's it. You can print that form, or you can save it in your files for future records. And the only thing I will mention here is, technically you're done if you're using a Windows-based computer. If you're using a Mac, For one reason or another, your name and a number is not automatically copied for page 7, which is this one. And so if you're using a Mac, I need you to print the form and handwrite this information and this information. If you don't put it in there, they could send all the paperwork back to you until that is taken care of, which is the other question that people ask me on a regular basis. If we are not doing anything with page 6 and 7, do we need to print it and mail it? And the answer is simply yes, because if not, they're going to say that you submitted an incomplete form and they will mail it back to you. And so it's important that we take care of that. And that takes us to form number 2. Form number 2 is the 765I, and again, the expiration date is shown right here. And this is the form that is going to be the application to obtain a job. So you click on renewal of my permission, and then you put, again, your name. If you have a middle name, a last name, again, you don't do anything on the right side. Just go here, and again, you're gonna put your mailing address. And it's important that you always review the information, that everything is spelled out correctly. If you misspell your name and submit a form that way, immigration will misspell often your work permit. And if you contact them and you say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, after they already send you your card, you're gonna have to pay for $195 and wait a couple of months before they send you the correct one. Here, it's asking you if your mailing address is the same as your physical address. If the answer is yes, then you do not have to fill out this form. If the answer is no, for example, you have a P.O. box as your mailing address, but you actually live somewhere else, then notice what happens in this area once I click on this. And that gives you space to do that. But for this purpose, the answer is yes, so then we don't have to worry about it. Again, your number goes here. This is the number that you find in your work permit card. And again, it could start with the 204, the 207, the 214. Those are just some of the most common ones. And again, whether you're male, female, what's your marital status, and then it's asking if you've ever done one of these applications before. If you've applied for a work permit and gotten one, the answer is yes. And then it asks you if you've gotten a Social Security card before, and the answer is yes. And here you come back to the top and it's gonna ask you for your Social Security number. And right below that is asking if you want the Social Security Administration to send you another Social Security card. Now, if you say yes, then you're gonna have to provide information about mom and dad. If you already have a card, the answer is better no. And even if you need a new Social Security card, it's often better if you just go to the Social Security Administration office and get a card there. And for this one, you just put the country that you and your parents are from, what's the citizenship. So in this situation, it's gonna be Mexico, and you're ready to go to page 3. Again, you're gonna put the city, the town, or the village where you were born. And they also, in this area, they want the actual state from the country where you were born and the actual country. And then, again, this information should be in a previous application if you have a copy of it. If you don't have a copy of it, this information you can obtain from your passport or your birth certificate. And then you put your birthday. And then you come down to information about your last arrival. And here it's important to understand, if you have a passport from your home country, you can put that information there. If you don't have one, then don't worry about it. But if you have one, they're gonna need that information. What's the number of your passport? And then what country gave you that passport? And when does it expire? sometimes I get contacted, and the question is, can I put the information even if the passport is expired? The answer is yes. Let's say my passport expired on the 21st of February of 2020, but it is also recommended that you always have your passport up to date in case you actually have to leave the country. Some countries, like Mexico, will give you a fine for showing up in the country without a valid passport. If you are a Mexican, then it is really, really important that you do not, let me be clear, that you do not get a Mexican consulate card, because in Mexico, those Mexican consulate cards don't exist. But many times, the consulate gives it to you for whatever amount of money, making you think that you have a valid form of ID, which can be valid in the United States, but it's better if you pay for a passport. And then this is very important information. When did you last arrive to the United States? Again, this information should match what you originally said in your application from your first time, maybe in 2012, unless, and the only exception to this rule are the people who left the country with advance parole and came back. They get to put their date that they came back when they came back to the United States, which could have been 2016 or 2017. For everybody else, the date needs to be a date prior to June 15, 2007. So for example, if you came in as a child, maybe it was October 25th of 2000. And then the place of your last arrival, it could just say California, but check with your family. If you don't have an original copy of the application, check with mom, dad, or whomever you have contact with to confirm which state did you arrive. You don't have to always know where you came, but the state would be very helpful. And then here, under visitor or F1 visa or no status, how did you arrive to the United States? Some of the people who have DACA today originally came with a visa for visitor status. And if that's you, then the answer here is B2, visitor for pleasure. And that's what you put there. If you came without status, then you're just gonna put no status. And here, what's your status today? Most of you are gonna have just DACA. Okay. And then this side is done, and we go back to the top right. And this is very simple. What type of work permit are you applying for? It's a DACA work permit, which in this situation is C33, and this box is always empty, C33. And then you're done with this page. And in fact, you are done with that form, because the only thing you have to do is admit that you can read and understand English. You're gonna put, again, your phone number, your email address, and the date that you're gonna sign. You're gonna sign right here, and the date that you're gonna sign it. And again, you don't wanna sign it too early. Immigration may send it back to you because you signed it a month before you actually mailed it. You wanna sign it on the day that you're mailing it, or that's the date that you put on the form, for sure. It's important that that is clarified, because sometimes immigration will send the paperwork if it was if it was signed and dated too far ahead of mailing it to them. And that's, again, the form is 7 pages long, but we are only working with with 4 pages. And it is important for you to understand, again, that if you're doing it with a Mac, page 7 will also, again, need to be handwritten as clearly as possible. And then you're done with this form. The other piece that it is really important for me to understand, for you to understand, is that there's only two signatures, one on the 765I and one on the 821D. And with that, we move to 765 worksheet. And this one again, this one specifically expires on May 31st, 2020. And this one is a somewhat simple form. And here you just put your name. And then it asks you how much was your income. Some individuals, their income was zero. They may be college students who are surviving as a result of scholarships. Some individuals are working and are making different amounts of money. I know some individuals who have DACA who pursue their career goals and they're making now $80,000 a year, right? It's really, really important for you to be as close to accurate as possible. So let's say you made $25,400 and it's asking how much do you need in order to survive? Well, maybe you're in California and you're actually having to spend all $25,000 because rent is very, very expensive. The cost of living in general is very expensive. And you are renting maybe an apartment with somebody else and it's barely enough to cover the cost. This is the form that we fill out to justify that we need a work permit. But this is what I also call the contract. Each year you should, every time that you are renewing, you need to show that you're making more income. Or if you are a college student and you're not technically working and you're a full-time student and getting scholarship money, then this is okay if it's zero because you're going to explain here why. And before we get to the explanation, your assets. Your assets, as you get older and you finish high school, college, whatever it is that you study, maybe trade school, it is important that your assets continue to increase. So here's where I tell you that you should never buy a brand new car because one, when we ask you about assets, a car is not an asset if you haven't finished paying it. The same thing is for a cell phone, a computer, or anything else. You should always buy a vehicle that is between 20,000 and 90,000 miles because then those vehicles will last you several years. But in fact, many of the vehicles, the moment you drive out the lot, you are losing money in value of that vehicle, sometimes a few thousand. A few times you'll find that some vehicles will lose over $10,000 in value the moment that you drive it out the lot. So that's why it's important. But if you already finished paying your car, the question here is how much money is your car, your cell phone, your computer, your television, and your video games worth? And that's what immigration is trying to find out, that you in fact are increasing your assets every 2 years. So let's say you have a car and a cell phone and a computer and a television, and last time you said that your valuables were worth this much money, 3,870. The only things that qualify here, by the way, is electronics, and which includes vehicles in the situation. Also a home if you already finished paying your home. Otherwise, it's just the electronics. And so maybe this time your valuables have gone up to maybe 5,500. And then we move to the explanation. I am grateful to have obtained DACA as it has allowed me the opportunity to study and legally work in the country. I am in need of DACA renewal in order to continue my education and legally work to pay for my needs. So that's if you're a college student. Somebody else may say, I'm in need of DACA renewal because I am a single parent with 2 children who depend on me. Somebody else may say something like, I'm happy to report to you today that I am a college graduate with a bachelor's degree in computer science. I am in need of DACA renewal in order to put my degree to work. And you always want to finish by thanking them. So I usually say, I thank you for your consideration of my request. And that's it. And now you have finished the worksheet. And then we move to the last one. And the last one is the easiest of them. Again, this one doesn't have final date when you can use it. There's no expiration to it. This is the one that after you mail the forms, the package, within a few days, you're gonna get a text message or you're going to get an email that is going to tell you that they received the package. Again, you don't have to send it, rush order or register or any of that stuff. That was the first time because many individuals were worried about making sure that immigration got their application. Now you just mailed it and you mail this form with it, and then you'll get either an email or a text message letting you know that they receive it. And then within 2 weeks, you'll get actual letters in the mail that are going to tell you exactly the same. And those are the 4 forms, again, that you are going to submit to immigration, and you submit it as a package with the information that I previously mentioned to you, which is in the PowerPoint. Again, that goes with this information. You sign those 2 forms, and then you write a check, money order or cashier's check for $495 to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. You include 2 U.S. passport size pictures, and you include a copy of both sides of the work permit. And finally, a copy of the approval letter, which is called the A21D. And the form changes from time to time. This is an older version from 2017, but again, it's important that you include that in the paperwork. I understand 2 things. One is that some individuals don't end up getting the forms, the letters. We are not sure why. So if you didn't get it, it's okay, mail it out. And the other thing that I want to make sure you are clear about is at first, immigration would send you a letter 120 days before expiration of your work permit to let you know that you needed to renew it. Immigration stopped doing that about 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. So it's important that you understand that that doesn't happen anymore. And so again, I want to make sure that you have as much information as possible. And with that, if you have any questions, you can always contact me. If you want to share this information with other individuals, you are welcome to do so. My name is Rafael Vasquez, and again, I thank you for your time.